Today is Kirby's 33rd anniversary, and there's a lot to say about the future. I guess I should start with the official stuff that's coming. First, they revealed an expansion to Kirby and the Forgotten Land called Star-Crossed World, only available on Switch 2, releasing August 28th. It starts with Kirby and Elf Villain flying on the Warp Star for no real reason, and this is a good thing, because it means there's actually continuity. Kirby can go here at any time and just hang out with his friends, instead of everything just resetting next to the game until they randomly decide to bring a character back. Maybe next we can get some acknowledgement of Kirby having the patch land stock still? Tangent aside, it appears to be heavily focused on another dimension, especially the iteration from the Londia Shmup segment. It's visually stunning, and while it seems like it will mostly be remixes of levels and locations from the base game, it takes you to new places within those levels, which is something that makes me very happy. I love getting to see more of these worlds, and because it's a linear game, it makes it that much more special. If Forgotten Land was already an open world game, exploring the city just wouldn't be as special. I would still prefer if we got to see more islands flesh out the Forgotten Land more, obviously, but this is the second best thing. I hope they use some of the background locations people got to with the out of bounds hammer glitch, because that was so fun. There's at least one new location, but it'll likely be some kind of hub or penultimate final boss location, the Fallen Star Volcano. And of course, there will be new mouthfuls, and possibly copy abilities. I just hope we get actually new bosses and not some generic Shadow Phantom Crystal Goromondo type nonsense. Maybe they could try making Clawroline an actual character, but I'd be more than fine if she's just not in it at all. We made quite a few theories on what the Doomer's original forms could be. Now it's seeming likely it could be the Starries. Also, I'm pretty sure this Waddle Dee is a new character, as the Nintendo Treehouse video showed multiplayer and Bandana D still looked the same, so maybe we'll get some Waddle Dee lore? Going back to Fallen Star Volcano, it looks quite similar to Galacta Knight's first boss arena, which Galacta Knight has just been everywhere in this. The four-pointed star being absolutely everywhere, the Starry's wings, this thing's horns, the use of the word crossed. And while it's possible this one could be a coincidence, or at least it's not literally the same planet, remember years ago when Hal said looking closely at Galacta Knight's battle arena will give us answers and no one ever figured out what they were talking about? We may finally be getting an answer. This really ominous figure description says the purpose of all of this is to lead to someone in particular. This isn't just a conflict of some conceptual cosmic disaster. There's a particular individual at the center of it. And the other two likely candidates, Void and Elphilis, are usually more referred to as things or creatures than people, while Galacta Knight is usually referred to as a person. And Elphilis' story was already wrapped up pretty nicely, so I don't think they're gonna bring him back. I doubt it's talking about any of the human characters like Nichel or Wondaria, though I really hope that we will see at least some kind of memory phantom of the humans. I imagine they're never going to show them directly. It's also strange that it says, it is said that it can lead Kirby. So, is this entire event something that's also been prophesied? Even the Jamba Heart, while we often associate with Void, is really more to do with Galacta Knight, another dimension, and just ancient magic in general. Galacta Knight and the other three heroes sealed Void in the Jamba Heart. It can be seen in the background of one of his attacks, and Highness inexplicably gets trapped in a Jamba Heart from getting sucked into another dimension. But now it's time to get into what this video is really about. The direction of the Kirby franchise, and particularly lore. As insanely detailed as Kirby lore is, and how there's clearly someone in charge of making it stay consistent, there are some serious issues. One of the biggest issues has been getting cleared up recently, and that is mistranslations. On one rare occasion, a mistranslation was actually retconned into canon. In the original Squeak Squad, Dark Nebula was called the Ruler of Darkness, and in the English translation it became Ruler of the Underworld. But in the D2D directory posts Hal made, which were never given an official English translation and only fans who are much more careful to be accurate translated it, and the Dark Nebula page also says that it's the Ruler of the Underworld in the Japanese version. I understand this may be concerning to some, but in this particular example, I think it was for the best. Ruler of Darkness is far too vague to make any sense of, and if we imagine it's talking about dark matter and specifically, this just seems like a contradiction, since Zero exists. I guess Dark Nebula was originally called Dark Zero, but still, it just doesn't add up. Ruler of the Underworld is a lot more straightforward and honestly just more interesting, and it makes more sense as far as the Pandora's Box aspect of Dark Nebula is concerned. So if Void is in the Jamba Heart, and it's from another dimension, is it possible we're seeing the canonization of the Void's shining form in another dimension mistranslation? I could go either way with this one. It's unnecessary since the original was talking about astral birth, but it would make sense if the omnipresent Void's true form resided in what's essentially the nexus point of the Kirby universe. Speaking of, one thing I'm more confident will get clarity is that Forgotten Land is not in another dimension. I really don't know how this became so widely believed. AD can lead anywhere, even to completely alternate realities like the Dream Kingdom. Anything that's in AD usually has no atmosphere, always just space. The most we've ever seen is on Halakandra, and I think it's more pollution than sky. Even just going upwards brings you into a more spacey region. Even Halakandra is finicky, with it sometimes being referred to in another dimension, and then other times it's saying to exist at the end of a tunnel connecting to another dimension, and even more confusing when in Magalore Epilogue another dimension had another version of Halakandra called Lowkandra, which is your more typical abstract form of it. The Forgotten Land is not some parallel version of Earth, it's just Earth, and the inhabitants are just humans, same place as Shiverstar. Since we only see 2 islands, we can't even confirm if the rest of Earth is still frozen or not. And while I'd love to see confirmation, since there seems to be no plans of going to visit the rest of the world, we're probably not getting it. And with all the other time travel shenanigans, there's really no way to say if Earth should be frozen right now or not. And on top of that, Kirby in the Forgotten Land could legitimately take place thousands of years after Kirby 64, so long that maybe it unthawed again from getting close to a different star. And this should be this expansion should make this very clear, because if it was already in it, why would it be leaking out and transforming it? And the Land of Dreams that Leon talks about, while at first glance seems like Dreamland, it's actually another dimension. And this is a 100% fact, as the Japanese translation of Star Allies directly calls another dimension exactly those words. Think I've said another dimension enough times in this video yet? Well, that's my next point. It's been 3 years since Forgotten Land released, and now we're getting DLC? Star Allies got 3 waves of DLC within the same year. Granted, that game felt incomplete, so there was probably a rush to get more content. Forgotten Land was supposed to be the first step into a new era of Kirby, but now it feels like they're stuck in stasis again, revisiting the same things over and over again. Looking at what they've released after Forgotten Land, they gave us Dream Buffet, while certainly experimental, was definitely in some way an expansion of Kirby Tilt and Roll from Forgotten Land. And then they gave us a remake of Return to Dreamland. And we're doing another dimension again? Like, we had the original one in Return to Dreamland, we had Heroes in another dimension in Star Allies, we had Magalore Epilogue, which was in another dimension, we had Forgo Dreams, which is basically identical to another dimension, even though it wasn't literally it. If the Kirby Planet Robot remaster ends up being real, we'll most likely be getting a Suzy prequel, which would also be in another dimension, which that remake in itself would be unnecessary and treading old ground. And now, we have this. And Galacta Knight too. Don't get me wrong, love the character, but I feel like we've learned all we need about him. The only thing left to explain is what he is, his relationship to Meta Knight, Kirby, and Void. But as we'll see later, I don't think this will ever get answered. The only thing this will do is confirm to those ridiculous doubters that yes, Galacta Knight was always canon. It's especially weird when there was such a good opportunity to make a Galacta Knight fight in Return to Dreamland Deluxe a part of the actual canon extra mode, instead of it just being a dream battle in the arena, whatever that means. Then again, a 3D Galacta Knight fight would go so hard I can't complain. I just hope his boss arena has something like silhouettes of the other 3 heroes, or just something that can begin shifting the focus to the others. So I'm hoping this is like a last hurrah for Another Dimension. Not entirely, as it's a very lore significant location and we're obviously gonna have to see it again, but at least no more post games with Another Dimension collectathons for a long time. And I'd hope this will give us more answers than questions, but with how they keep just adding new stuff instead of elaborating on what's already there, it's seeming unlikely. Now, it's time to talk about the one truly bad thing about this, Nintendo's new upgrade packs. I don't need to tell you about Nintendo's horrible business practices lately. There's practically a new video every day about it. Just go watch one of those. But the one thing that affects Kirby is this upgrade pack nonsense. Kirby Star Allies got 3 waves of DLC completely free. But now, Nintendo is not only going to force you to buy an entire new overpriced console to play an expansion of a game that was released 3 years ago on an older console, and the pack costs $20. This is just gatekeeping. There's no good reason this needs to be a Switch 2 exclusive, and they showed us all this lore significant imagery on purpose. They are using Kirby lore enthusiasts' desire for answers to bait them into buying Switch 2s. Maybe, just maybe, there's something in this game that requires mouse pads or so much performance that it literally wouldn't be possible to run on Switch 1. But chances of that are very slim. Even Metroid Prime 4 can run on the base Switch and doesn't require mouse control. Paid DLC on its own isn't wrong. While this certainly looks higher quality than Star Allies' DLC, I doubt there's more content. Star Allies had 10 new playable characters, multiple custom levels for guest star, tons of new arena content, and an entire new campaign. There doesn't even seem to be star-crossed variants of every level, so how they're gonna justify going from free to $20 is beyond me. But I know it's not HAL's fault. This is just the new norm. Mario Odyssey also had free DLC. But Doug Bowser has recently decided to make it very clear that they think they deserve even more money. But I won't pretend HAL is completely innocent. Nintendo's practices have definitely been wearing off on them. Like when they decided to delete the Kirby Orchestra streams after a certain time had passed, just like Nintendo removed 3D Mario All-Stars. I've been boycotting Nintendo since I got Mario Wonder. Not because of the prices, but because they literally stalked a dude, gathered all his personal info, and went to his house, all because he homebrewed his Wii or something. I mean it when I say you absolutely should boycott Nintendo. The things that they do are just unacceptable, and will set a horrible precedent for the industry if they continue to be successful. I knew it was inevitable when the next big Kirby game dropped it would throw a wrench in my boycott, but my brother, who I know is listening right now, is planning on buying the Switch 2 anyway, so there's not much I can do about that. Next, they revealed a sequel to Kirby's Air Ride, Kirby Air Riders, directed by Sakurai himself. And while you could look at this as a new era of Kirby being more experimental and branching out, then again, we're going back to an old game, bringing back an old director. Also goes with the refusal to just not move forward. I have nothing but positive thoughts towards the game itself, don't get me wrong, and most people do too. But then there's this very vocal group who are perpetuating this idea that Sakurai hates modern Kirby and is going to only represent the franchise before he left. Which, one, is just not true. There were spirits of modern Kirby characters in Smash Ultimate, and Kirby's final boss was changed to Ultra Sword in Smash 4. Sakurai went on in one of his Kirby videos that his preferred Kirby world is one that has illogical dreamlike terrain. And this is something that has actually remained in modern Kirby and even been expanded upon. But looking at the stage that was shown off in Air Riders, it's weirdly normal and realistic. It doesn't seem like any prior Kirby location as far as I can tell. Sakurai isn't making his preferred Kirby universe, it's just a fresh new take, nothing more, nothing less. And two, would that even be a bad thing? Kirby has become a bit obsessive with its own legacy lately. There's collectibles and just shoehorned in references to the main Kirby characters in almost every game lately. I really don't think we need playable Racer Magolor. I'm really getting tired of this stupid egg. And for something that was literally made up in fans' heads, A lot of people are, like, needlessly hostile towards Sakurai over this. Like, did we just forget that Sakurai was super overworked during Smash development and set, like, unnecessary hate over certain characters not getting in? Show the poor guy some respect. I want to see the hashtag thank you Sakurai come back, because he deserves it. I think it will be refreshing to see some older, more forgotten minor characters from the past, and as long as we get to see Dale, we don't need anyone else. I doubt this game will have a story since the first one didn't, maybe a little background lore. Star Allies at least made stuff in Air Ride canon, but I do expect Machine Passage to return, and with it, the Machine Passage monster. And if we get a track description with some lore on this place, I'm gonna flip. Overall, I doubt Sakurai will be sticking around after this game, but I do hope to see these two sides of Kirby working together instead of separately, and just more innovative takes on the franchise in the future. Just hopefully we don't see any of Sakurai's nothing needs to have answers in Kirby philosophy. Now for some other stuff that didn't just happen, but is fairly recent and will affect Kirby lore going forward. So for a while, HAL was really good at clearing up misconceptions and clarifying lore, sometimes to such an extent where the stories were more coming from social media posts than the actual games. But then, there was a cataclysm. In one of these posts, Kumazaki decided to clarify that Void doesn't have the same face as Kirby by default, and that it mimicked Kirby's face as it was the first thing it saw after its rebirth. That's it. And somehow, this one thing has half the community against Void Kirby, despite it being one of the most logical and satisfying conclusions to any lore ever, and every other piece of evidence still being there, and there being nothing on the contrary. Somehow, this one thing is a deconfirmation to a lot. Meteors was practically the leader of Kirby lore, and even he had to put a big fat allegedly in front of anything involving Void Kirby, even though he obviously believes it to be canon and wants it to be considered as such. And after Meteors retired, this mindset has only become more and more common. It almost feels like some fans were waiting for him to leave the picture just so they could reaffirm what they believed as canon without him getting in the way. And HAL has only gotten more and more uncooperative as time has gone on. I'm not going to pretend that we have a credible translation of this, though every translation I've seen had the same results. But when asked about the octopus from Right Back At Ya in Star Allies, Kumazaki finally touched on the canonicity of Kirby Right Back At Ya. He gave a vague, neutral response, saying he wanted to fuel both sides of the argument. That's fair enough to be neutral on, because people would be upset no matter which was true. But then the Kirby Wiki goes and decides to cite this as evidence that Kirby Right Back At Ya isn't canon. The absence of confirmation is not evidence of deconfirmation. And this isn't Wick Kirby's only offense. For a couple months, even after the reveal that Super Kirby Clash is canon, they still used Galacta Knight as the icon for non-canon. Never mind the fact that he was canon as soon as Morpho was canon, or, you know, the fact that he was canon from the start. A what-if scenario does not mean non-canon. That means it's in an alternate timeline, and now that the multiverse is a thing, all timelines can be canon unless said otherwise. And Meteors realized Galacta Knight was confirmed canon instantly at the end of Magolor Epilogue, so this is definitely another byproduct of his retirement, because for those who don't know, Meteors used to be one of the biggest contributors to the wiki. There's this post that deliberately calls attention to the possibility that Flamberg and Francis could be related, or just in a sisterhood. So basically they're saying there's a 50-50 chance that this ship is problematic, and they just won't confirm if it is or not. Why? I never even thought that they were actually blood related, just adoptive sisters, which is still weird to me, but then they just made this even weirder for no reason. They went out of their way to provide reasons why various dialogue directly from Kirby isn't him literally talking instead of just confirming Kirby can't talk. And then there's the time that they shot down the idea of an official Kirby timeline just to not step on anyone's headcanons. But much more concerning is that they said continuity and consistency will take a backseat if it gets in the way of making innovative or fun games. How? There's a very easy answer to this. Just make some games explicitly non-canon. You don't have to sacrifice the entire canon to force every game to be mainline. And then they also just want to go and say that Kirby canonically doesn't kill, which is just like, there's a lot of scrutiny to be had about the casual enemy encounters, and I think most of them are generally not canon. But Kirby does kill. That's just not something you can get rid of. And it's very clear why they're doing this. When Forgotten Land released, it introduced so many new fans. It became the best-selling Kirby game, and it's like the only Kirby game with an easier difficulty setting at the start of the game. So now, HAL is on a tirade to make Kirby have as wide of an audience as possible, even at the cost of confirming what's obviously canon, because if little Timmy's mom finds out that Kirby is actually the god of chaos and destruction, she's not going to want to buy him that plush as much, is she? But for the fans, I don't even know why they've shifted like this. I can see reasons for specific ones, like Void Kirby being disliked for the same reason Timmy's mom doesn't like it. And maybe people don't want to accept the fact that Forgotten Land is supposed to be a cautionary tale to humanity to stop messing with the things beyond us. But then some people will even go as far as to say they don't believe that Void and Dark Matter are related. Like, just why? I've matured in a lot in regards to how I handle video game lore discussions. I used to just get into heated arguments all the time. And while a big part of me still wants definitive answers, it's really more about discussing unique and intriguing ideas over just being right. But recently, outside of my own comments, I haven't had any good lore conversations. Everyone is immediately dismissive of any new ideas that challenge what's been believed for ages, excluding Void lore. The contrarian mind virus really has just taken over lately. There's not really any other explanation I can come up with. It feels like some fans are actively hindering others from solving anything, and it makes me wonder, why are they engaging in Kirby lore to begin with? Not even Morse code revealing Elphilin's name is actually a misspelling of an anagram of Nil Life, Nil being the Japanese name for Void, and Chaos Elphilis having the same name as Astral Birth Void in Japan is enough to convince some people. I don't even necessarily want Elphilis to be Void. I think they'd be just fine being their own thing. But the game says what the game says. It's like you'd need something engraved in stone on a plaque at the HAL Laboratory headquarters in order to convince some of these people some things are canon. But this whole only what HAL says can be used as canon is a real issue because they mostly post this stuff in really obscure places. Something might have been confirmed ages ago and we just don't know because it's in such a random place no one's archived the post. Our only real hope is Meteor's returning soon, but I wouldn't get too hopeful as even anytime I had a debate with him, he had the same dismissive approach. Even a lot of the examples I gave were some of the things that we argued about. But in his case, he was just genuinely burnt out from Kirby lore debates. So I still have some hope that when he returns, some sense will be brought back to this community. So in conclusion, I'm not going to say that the future of Kirby looks bright or bleak. I'm just going to say it looks like there's a lot of potential for either. And next time that you have a Kirby lore conversation, try to approach it with a more open mind. And of course, happy 33rd anniversary to Kirby.